Okay. And I'm going to go get the rest of this and we'll be in business. We're working, we're up and going.
Get her a chair. And, oh, my cards. There we go. Oh, prayer. stay away from the You were sitting here, son.
No, I said over the other day. You weren't here. Oh, that's upstairs.
So they counted the male population and did the amount of the number of males and the property they had. And of course that was so they could be taxed for that. So today we're going to talk about that. And the interesting part of this is, to me, to start with, is this sheet right here that has the little funny map on it. This is called a census tract map. You know, you have school zones, you have voting wards. Well, these are census. This is a census tract, and it's totally different from that. But we base our school zones on what these census tracts tell us. A census tract, each of those areas that are numbered, is between 2,500 to 8,000 people in one, and sometimes they average about 4,000. But it's anywhere within that range of number of people that they have in a census tract. And this shows you the census tract for the Tupelo area. I thought you'd like to see that because I didn't know what what our census tract maybe looked like. And as we work through this assignment and tomorrow, you'll be able to see how a census tract differs from a school zone. But we learn how much population in a certain area of the city so we can do school zones. And that's how we determine how to racially balance our schools and where factories are needed. So that's what this particular sheet is going to tell you today. What a census tract is. It's going to let you see that visually. And then if you look on the next sheet, if you turn, look on the second sheet inside, you're going to have several big areas there. And before you work in your group, I'm not going to take but a few minutes to tell you what these particular areas of the census deal with. How many of you think you have a good idea of why we need a census? Okay.
So the world's constantly growing, and there's many reasons why we need to know how many people are in a particular area, widespread.
Okay.
To keep up with annual population.
Okay, and that could be important for several reasons, and we've got 5 main headings here that you can see why that it's used. The first deals with to help your community thrive, and for that reason we do the census because what if there's a lot of traffic congestion in an area? Non-profit organizations have used the census in order to estimate the number of volunteers that they'll need in any given, it might be a crisis, there might be a tornado, there might be, remember when Camille went through, you won't remember that, but you remember reading about the effects of different hurricanes that have hit the eastern coastline from Florida on up. Well, those volunteers are called on and asked for, depending on the census numbers, where they can get volunteers, how many people they can count on. It makes your government work for you. It also tells the government how much tax, how many tax dollars to give you as an area. Our state gets so many tax dollars depending on the number of people that live in this area. They think that there'll be they're anticipating 118 million housing units and 275 million people across the United States. That's a lot of people, so that's going to require a lot of census workers to go out and ask these questions. There is a short form and a long form. The short form of the census will have 7 areas on it, and the long form will have 27 more areas. But the main areas are the age of the person, of course the name, and if you look down there it'll say name, sex, age, relationship, Hispanic origin, race, and the housing tenure, which means is the house owned or is it rented. And 5 out of 6 housing units will receive this short form, and then 1 out of 6 housing units will receive the long form, and they'll be asked about their educational background, how they get back and forth to work, transportation means, available to them in their neighborhood. And so that's another way that the census helps us, is by, if we get all these questions, then they are never used, your privacy is never given up by answering these questions. They compile the answers, and only do they use the compiled answers to all these questions to know where the needs of people are. In one of the states, an elderly group of people got together and they got a community center built just for the elderly because there were so many in that particular area of their state. And where did they go to get that information? The census information. But it only has compiled information. It has no names, and that's confidential. However, you as an individual, when you get very old, if you can't remember your birthday, there are people coming through now, elderly people who maybe didn't have a regular birth certificate. They can write the Census Bureau, and they can help them try to establish a birth date just based on the census that have been taken and how old they were at a particular census that was taken. Do you see, it can help you? It can help you with some kind of inheritance, proving your kinship towards someone. So it's interesting, plus it's important. It also determines how many seats that Mississippi gets in the House of Representatives, or Tennessee, or Kentucky, or whoever. So that's real important for us too. So this census, if we had grown a whole lot, then our state might get another representative. If it remained the same, we would stay the same. New schools are based where they're needed, is based basically on the census and how many people live in different areas and also what's in that area. Okay, let's go to our activity sheet where we live that has to do with the population in an area, and we're going to talk about and learn to use 2 different types of map. One's called a population density map. And a population density map is strictly a map that tells you how many people are in the United States or in a state or in a county. And this is a population of the United States. And if you look down in this area, it's by counties. And you can tell where the heaviest populations are. And over here you have the American Indian reservations. So you can see, look at the key and tell how many, and then tell what each map is, the information it's giving you, and draw conclusions from it. I've given you an activity sheet, and on it, it's going to ask you some questions about how the population is distributed in each state, and in other words, how many people per square mile are in the United States. And it's going to ask you several questions that you and your group will work out which you think is the best conclusion to draw for that particular question. Some of them are facts and some of them are things that you have to work through. So we can see that at one time, from the map up here, we can see that actually the New England states, and from your early history that the New England states were the ones that had the heaviest population. You have just studied the westward movement, haven't you? And that's called a population shift. And the population has shifted, has started shifting. Still, our cities are going to have more population, but that population has shifted more some years than others. But for now, I want you to look at your population density activity sheet, and I want you to work as a group and see what the population density on these maps can tell you. And you have a large one over here, and if you need to get up and go look at it, or this one, and it will tell you where the population is most dense by counties in this lower part here. Are there any questions? Okay.
In what state is the center of population located in 1790? See the map over here.
Okay, y'all probably need to talk louder so you can hear each other, okay?
Okay. In what state was the center of population located in 1790?
The center of population?
The center of population. Look on the map. Center 1790. Yeah. Maryland. Maryland. Y'all agree Maryland?
Yeah.
Okay. In 1890. Okay. You can find it, boys. Where is this at?
Indiana.
And in Indiana? And in 1990.
Right there. Missouri.
Missouri. Okay. Which decade? California and New York. Huh?
California and New York.
Uh-huh.
Look at your state. What is the population density of the most densely populated part?
Here, I'll go with this time. Got it?
Okay. How many people per square mile do the red counties have? All right, now when you get through, you know that you're going to draw your conclusion about what's going on. What is this map telling you? What kind of information can you get after having answered these questions? How can you use them?
East Jackson. Jackson. Just kidding.
Facebook Biloxi.
Yeah, that's it.
What is the population density of the least densely populated part?
The what?
Least densely populated part.
I bet that's like,
Delta. Somewhere
I think
over
it's
there.
New Hampshire.
They're talking about our state.
Oh, just.
Looking at Mississippi.
Which two states voted for the most populated? California and New York. I knew that. How many people per square
No, they're
mile?
talking about our state.
250 or more per mile.
We should tell them just to look at that. It's up there.
What is it? They should just
Number
like
4. Which region of the country seems to be most densely populated? The Northeast, the Midwest, the
the
South, or the West?
The South. I think the South is.
I think it's probably going to be the Northeast.
Yeah, Northeast. Oh, I didn't know Northeast was a choice.
Mississippi, right on the border with Louisiana. Louisiana's north border. Which region region of the country seems most densely populated? Northeast, Midwest, South, or the West?
Northeast.
Which is northeast. But we're just
Yeah, because see, they're like red and orange really in the
and
northeast.
all the others are yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Northeast. What is one conclusion
Even Joe from the match.
people like the Northeast?
More people live in the west.
See,
What did they talk about when they said densely populated? With the most population, or just like which state is completely 250 people or more per square mile?
which one?
What does densely populated mean to you? Just which state? If it's a huge state and it has a huge population, but if it's a small state, and it's completely filled up with people, which one's more densely populated? It's completely filled up with people. So that would be, according to that map, it's Rhode Island and New Jersey.
Okay, Rhode Island and New Jersey.
New Jersey's the largest.
No, Alaska is the largest state. New Jersey is a really small state.
Which, so New Jersey and Rhode Island?
Yes, New Jersey,
Yeah.
Rhode Island.
How you know?
I looked up on the map.
Okay. Look at your state. What is the population density of the most densely populated part?
One moment, please. I'll be right back.
Let me see it.
The most densely populated is by Jackson. So is that what they're asking? And it's 250 people per square mile.
It said, look at your, now what is the state?
What's the population
Look at our state
Of the whole state, or just the
of
most
the
densely?
most densely populated part?
That's Jackson, 250 people per square mile.
250 or 200?
250 people per square mile.
What do you think about it? A conclusion you could draw from the map?
There's a lot of people in America.
We have too many people. America.
Big place.
Okay, what have y'all found out about this particular population density map?
That the Northeast is the most densely populated part in America.
Okay,
We learned the two most densely populated states, the most populated part of our state,
okay.
stuff like that.
So the western half is more sparsely populated, except in the big cities, the few big cities that are in that area.
And in the smaller states, they're just overpopulated, I guess.
What do you think are some of the things that you think that might help local governments and people determine?
About their population?
What do you think that population density might help state governments with?
No idea, really. Like, it could help them with, I don't know.
If they know the different ages, you know that it's very densely populated, and you know the different ages, what could it tell?
It could help.
How old everybody is.
Okay, and what the needs of the community?
Yeah, like what the community would need for like to build. Like if there were older people, they wouldn't need a new mall or anything. They could use a retirement home or something.
Okay, they might need retirement villages or homes.
Or if there were younger people in that state, they could use any new building or structure or anything like that. They could that way young people have something to do, or young people could get jobs or anything like that matter.
They may need to encourage more industry to come to that area. Okay, good. You're getting the idea of how the government uses this, either locally or nationally. Okay, what kind of conclusions have y'all drawn from what you've found?
More people live in the Northeast.
Okay.
Then the West or the South.
How do you think their needs, how do you think this population density affects the needs in the northeastern part of the United States?
They need more
Jobs.
Jobs, housing,
And not as much farming land.
They need
Like,
more supply stores.
okay, so they would have to have more stores to bring, more processing places to bring food goods in that they can use. Okay, so they'll need more industry.
and they would need more highways and more room and for all the cars and
They
stuff.
have more cars.
Huh?
They have more cars, so
And
then they would
like
get
make
traffic jams a lot since it's such a small area.
Okay, so that, again, in turns, affects the environment, doesn't it?
And I think they need to like redo the roads, some of them, instead of gravel roads. They need to pave them.
Right. Even in the rural areas out from the more dense areas, you're going to have people moving
Yeah.
in that area, and the city's getting larger and larger where the population is growing. And how do you think we can tell how the population is growing in an area of our country? Yes, great. We can tell because we can look at the 1990 census, and then we can look at the census that we have this year and see how that population is growing in a certain area, and know that it's possible that it's going to keep growing. Find out what the attraction is in the area. Are there good jobs? Are there good roads? Are there good facilities for the elderly and the young, good job opportunities?
And like like Elvis Presley, that's been like Elvis Presley's house and everything. That's been a lot of like popular things to see.
We've had a lot of tourism, right? That brings tourism, and where you have tourism, more than likely you're going to have people decide to come and live eventually.
How
Good.
recent is that?
This just came out this year. Got it from the
Based
Census
on the
Bureau.
1990.
Well, this was based on the last census because we haven't done the new one. The new one starts April the 1st, is Census Day. But y'all are getting the idea. Now we're going to start on the population, the mean population.
Because it seems to have more of the California is like the most populated state.
It is.
It is.
I thought New York was.
But New York is the second, and plus you add that on to the other population of the other states, that adds on to a bigger number. But
Okay, what conclusions have y'all drawn from looking at the population density?
Well, it varies in every state. In some states, it's a lot. There's a lot of more people than there would be in other states. Just depends on the location where it's at.
Okay, and which area is the most dense over the United States?
We would think near the west, like in California, because that seems to be where
Over all the United States, where over all of the United States, what area of the United
I see
States?
the northeast.
Yeah.
northeast.
Okay,
Towards New York and Maine and places like that.
okay.
Florida.
What do you think attracts people to make this more dense?
The city.
All of that.
Large cities.
Yeah, it's cold up there. Most.
What did you say?
There's a lot of large cities over there and a lot of beaches. It's like on the coast, so a lot of people.
And they're older cities. Our country started in that area, right? And we had westward movement. And do you see how it's very obvious when you look at the map that something's different in this area because you have heavy population here and in the eastern half?
Yeah, it's not. It's not near like the mountains and stuff. It's like where the cities are, all the large supplied areas.
Right.
That stuff.
And that's where you see the little darker red, more dense areas.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of farmland in some of that too, but then some of it's mountainous and you can't have anything there. But we're going to stop with the population density if you've got your conclusion written down, and we're going to the population mean. The mean center of population. And what does the mean center of population mean? What do you think that would mean? The mean center of population.
Average is sum of all of it.
Okay. If the United States were flat and you had an even number of people on the right and an even number of people on the left, then supposedly you could take your something and put it in the very middle and it would balance, wouldn't it? But what if all the people start moving to one side?
Get overpopulated and then unbalanced.
So then you're going to have to move your finger over to make them, the balance, the point of balance is going to be moved over toward the more densely populated area, wouldn't it be? So that would be the mean center of population. Do you see how the mean center of population? It's the point if the United States were flat and all the people weighed the same amount, that you could balance it and still have it the weight distributed equally throughout. And so that changes as populations change and move, doesn't it? And if you'll flip your sheet over to the other side, your activity sheet, the mean center of population is the point at which the country would balance perfectly if it were a flat surface and everybody were equal weight. Now look over in Maryland. It starts out in 1790, and then you keep progressing to Missouri. That's in 1990. It goes up to 1990. The little triangular shapes show you how the population shifted from that year. Each year has a little triangular shape to the next year. And let's see what you can do with this population, the mean center of population map. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
In what state was the center of the population located in 1790? And some of these are just look at the map and simply write down the answers. And then the last question says, what do you think this shift means? So get your answers as a group and then see what you can conclude as a group that this shift in population means from 1790 to 1990.
Basically, what I see is shift to the west.
Okay, and it starts out in Maryland.
It's unbalanced and it moves farther west.
Okay, y'all have already decided? That was quick. What did you decide? What does that shift mean to your group?
Well, we think it means that more people decide they want to move where all the room is now that they've pretty much been to the towns and all, so there's a lot more room for the west.
Okay. Probably land prices too might be cheaper as you get out of the big city or the more populated areas. Okay? See what other conclusions that you might come up with about the population shift. Okay, have y'all had a chance to think about the population shift? Okay. What conclusions have y'all been able to?
That there was an overpopulation of the Northeast, and that the South and West was opening up and people were finding out what was there, and they wanted to move there so they could have more land.
Okay. Have more land, possibly more opportunities. What was the one big thing that got people to moving west?
Gold rush.
Yes, the gold rush. And y'all have just, finished studying that. Okay. Write down what your conclusions are, and we'll compare those conclusions and see just what each group came up with. Okay, what kind of conclusions have y'all been able to come up with?
We've been discussing some people. I think it means there's more opportunity in the west areas. And that Martin thought that people just got tired of living over there, so they just decided to move around and see
Do
what
you
it
think
was like.
that could be, both answers could be a good conclusion to draw?
Yes.
It could be, but I mean, we're still debating over what we think.
Okay. In other words, you probably can draw several conclusions from just the 2 or 3 questions that you entertained on this particular sheet.
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Yes, ma'am. You can draw how vastly people moved over the years and how far they moved or how far they didn't move.
And when you think about the westward movement, can you see that happening on your map and when it happened?
Yes, ma'am.
And the California Gold Rush? Can you
Yes,
see
ma'am.
how that affected the movement? Okay.
You can also draw from the map where people moved the most, or where they like to stay. Like in Indiana, they didn't move very much, so I guess they liked it there. But and then throughout the years, people just kept on moving.
Mm-hmm. So they tended to stay in one area a little longer than they did other areas. Good point. Okay, see what else y'all can come up with. Okay, what kind of conclusions has this group come up with?
Well, it just looks like the population has moved further to the west, larger amounts.
What do you think caused this?
As more people came to the U.S., they had to make room, so they just moved more west.
Okay, good guess. Alicia, what did you want to add?
I would say southwest, the people that moved, the population has shifted to the southwest since 1790.
Okay, because what do you think may have caused that?
Well,
What if you think about what if you had lived back then? What would make you want to move from the east, where most of the people were, to go west?
Because it's quiet, probably.
you might want lots of land, and it was very cheap.
Like better land to go.
Where it's crowded, it causes
Okay,
more
better.
defeat,
the gold rush.
more
Okay, good, Scott.
problems.
So you can draw a lot of conclusions, can't you? You don't just have to stick with one. And if you keep talking about it, you'll probably come up with 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or an endless amount of conclusions that you could draw from this particular map.
They started in Missouri and then they went on to Oregon. So remember how they started in St. Louis and they went to Oregon. We're on the same class. Remember they had the stories about they would grow crops and have bigger than the people, and that's what brought a lot of people out because of just exaggerations and stories.
Thinking that the land is better.
And one group brought out this. They said, we noticed how they must have liked Indiana because they seemed to stay there a little bit longer. I thought that was interesting. That was a conclusion I had not heard before. Did y'all come up with anything else?
Our conclusion.
Did y'all have anything else besides what we talked about before?
No, man.
Just basically we thought was there's been a lot of shifts, different shifts. It seems in the earlier times it was like near towns and cities, and now they've been moved into the more farmland.
Okay, let me have your attention just a moment. What do you think, that was it. Sorry about that.